It's time for Chicagoland Golf with the editor and publisher of Chicagoland Golf Magazine, Phil Kosin. The show where for the next 2 hours, you'll get the latest info from the PGA Tour, local tournaments, and tips for your golf game. And now, your host, Phil Kosin.
And thank you, boys. That's the, Dave White, that's the British Open polka. And, you know, in a lot of areas of the Chicago and the suburbs, we've got British Open weather this morning. I'm looking outside and outside the castle on the Kosin compound this morning, and everything got a good drink between, 3 and 5 this morning.
Yeah, it was bad driving in.
I'll take a look at the radar in a minute. There may be some people, like last Saturday morning, I found out, thanks to the emails, sitting in cars listening to us, waiting to get started at local courses. I'm not sure there's any lightning in the area, but welcome in, everybody. We got a great show today. Of course, we're going to talk about the British Open, and in a few minutes we're going to go out to Birkdale and talk to guy who's, we've been friends for, I want to say I've known Jim for 25, 30 years. Jim is, he's a big shot. He's the national columnist in the sports department for the Associated Press. And one of the reasons a lot of people, it's kind of fun because we get to run Jim's columns in Chicagoland Golf because, first of all, we have the space. Secondly, I think Jim makes a lot of great points, and, having the position of Associated Press columnist, national sports columnist, means the guy's really good at what he's at. But the other reason that I like to do it is because Jim doesn't get any exposure in the Chicago area. He writes all these great things, and they don't run in the Tribune, and they don't run in the Sun-Times. And so we run them in Chicago Golf, and what's really kind of cool is sometimes Jim will go play golf when he is, during the few times he is at home here in Chicago, and he'll give them their name, and they'll say, oh, yeah, you're Jim Litke, you're from Chicagoland Golf, which is fine, he blends right in with our crew over there. But, he blends in, and he has a lot of good things to say. So anyway, we've got a lot to talk about today. We have a tournament going on in Milwaukee, and we'll update you on that later because that's not going to start for a while. We also have a tournament going on in Springfield, Illinois, down at Panther Creek. Take a sip of water there. Panther Creek, the LPGA, the State Farm Rail Classic. And the end of the world may be upon us, folks. Michelle Wee actually played good 2 days in a row, and she's got herself in the hunt down there. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later on. And during the second half of the show, there are people in the golf business that are heavyweights that we all know about. And I try to get some of them on the show from time to time. Next week, we're going to have Barney Adams, who is the president, the main man at Adams Golf. And Barney will tell the truth about the golf industry and how the BS is being shoveled at golfers. One of the great quotes that I ever heard came from Barney, and he said something on the order of, I wish golfers would learn that most of the extra distance and accuracy is not coming from golf manufacturers' research and development departments. It's coming from the marketing department. And I thought that's a pretty strong statement. So Barney's going to be with us next week. We have Brent Wadsworth on the show today. Brent is the president, founder of Wadsworth Company. They build golf courses. And they have been around for 50 years. And they have built over 500 golf courses around the world. That means 1 out of 16 golf courses that is open today was built by Wadsworth. And they're doing the renovation work for Reese Jones over at Cog Hill. So Brent will join us during the second half of the show. And we're going to salute him in Wadsworth today because the company celebrates its 50th anniversary. So we'll find out, what it's like to own a company and build golf courses, and I think that'll be an interesting inside look at golf and the golf industry for our listeners. All right, let's go to Jim Litke. Hey, Dave, can you kind of set the tone to bring Litke in? And now we go to Royal Birkdale, and our guest for the first hour or so, Jim Litke from the Associated Press. Oh, we lost him. Okay, well, we'll try again. We're going across the pond. Just jump in, Dave, and tell us when you have Jim back. All right. We'll take a look at the leaderboard out there because I'm not going to waste Jim's time doing that. It's been kind of fun to watch. And I'm looking at the leaderboard the first 2 days, and it's always been my opinion, and I don't know why, but it seems like when Tiger Woods first made his mark on the professional golf scene back in 1996, that was right about the time that Greg Norman seemed to back away from it. And I kind of thought that was strange. I was wondering if indeed Norman just had lost interest in playing, his injuries had got the best of him. Or was it because he didn't want to share the spotlight with Tiger? He didn't want to compete with that. I don't know. I don't think anybody's ever asked him that. And I just think it's kind of ironic that Tiger goes off the shelf for all these months, and we come to the first Tigerless major, and who rises to a top but a guy that had the TV cameras follow him around for most of his career, just like they do for Tiger now. Greg Norman. I mean, it's no secret that back during the heyday, Greg Norman got Tiger Woods type treatment when he was on the golf course. So, Tiger Woods treatment, what I mean, but when I say that is like if he's 6 shots off the lead with a lot of players between himself and the leaders, when he was putting for birdie or eagle, they'd switch right to Greg Norman. Lance Barrow, who in those days was the assistant, but Frank Cherkinian, who they call the Ayatollah, who was the producer over at CBS Sports and kind of ran the whole show in golf and was an innovator, he was in love with Greg Norman, and he realized, the dashing figure of Greg Norman, what he looked like, and what that meant to TV viewing. And then, of course, Tiger came in and took over. All right, do we have Jim?
We do indeed. We'll try this again, okay?
All right, sure. And now we bring in the national columnist for the Associated Press and a Chicago resident and a guy who may have been on a golf course already this morning, Jim Litke. Lower the music, Dave. Oh, okay. All right, it's these, let's just tell the listeners what's going on. We're trying to get a connection over to England, and it's, I guess we're dropping out, so I don't know what's happening. So, anyway, we take a look at the leaderboard this morning, and he made a long putt on the last hole. KJ Choi is in the lead at -1 at the British Open. And actually, they've got balls in the air right now on TV. But please, stick with us here.
And we have Jim in the air right now, too. You can go to him. Yes.
Jim, where are you?
I'm just got inside the press tent. I got to tell you, it is freezing cold up there. I know you said you got some Chicago weather. Drop the thermometer by about 25 degrees, and you'll be close.
Well, we saw the weather.
It is crazy cold over here.
We saw the weather the first 2 days, and I hear today and tomorrow it's supposed to be worse.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually the big problem the first day was driving rain. It was going sideways for quite some time. Yesterday the rain wasn't as bad. The wind was up a little bit. Today it looks like it's going to be all wind.
All right, well, let's talk about what we've seen the first 2 days. The first thing I want to bring up is earlier in the week, The Wire ran your column about John Daly.
Oh.
And I watched John come off the 18th hole yesterday, and it looked like John reminded me of the last days of Babe Ruth. Is that a good comparison?
That's perfect. I got to tell you, he looked horribly bloated. He was just completely disinterested. I don't know that I've seen a guy looking that down in a long time now. he was on. Keep in mind, he was on his way to shooting 89, and he spent the whole week complaining about this and that, about some injuries that he's had, which are probably legitimate. But he also blasted Butch Harmon earlier in the week and blamed Butch for a lot of his problems when that had really nothing to do with John's situation. So I think you always think that this guy is he's going to learn his lesson, but I got to tell you, when he wrapped up yesterday, he just looked like a severely beaten man.
If John asked you for advice as to what he should do right now to get things turned around in his career and in his life, what would you tell him?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would tell him he's got to stop drinking. I wouldn't be the first guy who's heard that from. He's heard it from, from friends. He's heard it from coaches. He's heard it from Eli Callaway when he was still alive. I mean, everybody's tried to explain it, John. There's no such thing as just a little drinking when you've got a problem the way John does. And so, what he does is meander over, start with a couple of beers. And I guess when he said on Tuesday, I'm hardly drinking at all, excuse me, that apparently means like a 12-pack. And so, the problem is the guy cannot devote himself to the task at hand. He's just not going to listen to anybody in that regard. He still hits the ball okay. He hasn't got much patience anymore. And what he lacks completely is any kind of consistency. And obviously, that's only going to come with practice and patience. And those are two things that you can't put in the same sentence with that man.
Well, to his credit, maybe he was injured yesterday. I don't think we have the whole story because he didn't hang around to talk to anybody. But at least he hung around and finished and turned in a scorecard, where many times in the past he's walked off early.
Well, yeah, but that's only because I think, like Mike Tyson, when Tyson was finally being chased by the IRS, when there were a bunch of tax liens against him, he knows he can't afford to do that anymore. I mean, he's worn out almost every sponsor's exemption. He's worn out almost every friend, and even a lot of professionals have tried to help the guy. I remember the phrase, I think, Sally Jenkins from the Washington Post once described one of his rehab sessions as a road runner going through a car wash. I mean, the guy is there just long enough to get everybody to smile for 5 minutes, and then he's back out the door and back in trouble. It's a shame because I was around when this guy broke through in 1991. And I got to tell you, he was just such a breath of fresh air for this game. There's no way to describe it. And over here, they love him because, the whole Wild thing, he came and played, I think, it may have been Troon, but certainly at St. Andrews, where the fairways were a little dry, and the guy was driving the ball 400-plus yards, and they just loved it over here. They also love that sort of common man thing about John. But, that act is not only wearing thin on his audience, it's beginning to wear thin on John's nerves. As you said, he walked out that 18th green yesterday. I don't know when I've ever seen a guy just look so absolutely finished. And so I don't know where it goes from here.
That was the comparison I drew. I had seen years ago. I had seen some home movies somebody had of Babe Ruth during the last couple weeks of his career, where he had gained weight and you could see it in his face, and he couldn't function. He couldn't run anymore. He was just a tired old man at a very early age. It was in his late 30s. And I look at John Daly yesterday, and I saw the same thing, Jim. And, here's a guy that had such an overload of God-given talent, and those of us who are clear thinkers would be jealous of that talent. And I think that's what gets people so upset about what's happened to John Daly, is because, everybody around him can see what's happening except for him. And to squander what God gave you in the talent department, it's a sin.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, let's just keep in mind how many chances this guy's had. You can feel sorry for a guy up to a point, but nobody's going to be able to help him until he makes that decision to start helping himself. He just cannot separate himself from the hangers-on and from the liquor and from a whole range of things. And it's doing nothing but causing heartache for everybody that cares for the guy. But even worse, he's destroying himself. I mean, you hate to get too psychological about things like this, but this is a guy that he can't see what's in front of him. And no matter what everybody else tries to do, he just seems determined to blow it up.
All right, we'll take a break. We're on the phone with Jim Litke, the national columnist for the Associated Press. He is inside the press room as we speak at Birkdale And we'll come back to Jim. When we come back, Jim, we'll talk about the guys that are going to play on the weekend. It's 6:14 in Chicago. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show on a British Open weekend, or the Open Championship, which is the proper name we should use. We'll take a break. It's, like I said, 6:15. This is The Score, Sports Radio 670. Aye, the great game of golf. It started in Scotland. Now they're in England playing the Open Championship. And on the phone with us is the national columnist, the national sports columnist for the Associated Press, Jim Litke. All right, Jim, we finished up with John Daly. Let's talk about some of the guys that are going to play on the weekend. One of the things I think everybody noticed was that a lot of the guys that we expected to contend were struggling to make the cut yesterday.
Well, you got to keep in mind, and I'll tell you what, anybody that really enjoys and loves the game has got to play it over here a couple times, because it really is a game that's played on the ground here rather than through the air. And there are, it takes a different mindset. It takes a different kind of game. And I think, for instance, that's why you're seeing Greg Norman playing so well. This is a guy that grew up playing seaside golf, and he understands how to move the ball from spot to spot. A very smart guy, as far as weather goes, Tom Watson, sort of explained this to me. In the States, you're always looking for where you want the ball to land, and then that's pretty much where you're aiming at. What you do over here is you pick a spot where you want the ball to land, and then you pick a second spot where you expect it to finish. And so I think, you're seeing wedge shots being played from 100 yards. Instead of playing it with a wedge, Norman's been playing it with an 8-iron, hitting it low and running it up. And I think a lot of guys that we figure would be, that are obviously good golfers with personal games, still haven't really mastered seaside golf.
I think one of the things that's essential, and you don't see it because we play everything here through the air and throw things either at the pins or at the quadrant of the green where we have already predetermined we want to put our ball to get to a certain flag. I think that the game over there requires an immense amount of imagination. Just like you said, you've got to aim to an area and be able to imagine what the ball's going to do when it hits that area so it goes where you would like it to go.
That's exactly right, and that takes a different mindset. And the other thing you've got to do, quite frankly, is you've got to get yourself mentally ready to play in howling wind and often driving rain. I mean, there's not that much of an athletic component to the game in the States because we tend to play them in carts a lot. And most people want to play in really nice weather. Over here, that's rarely an option. The carts, you almost need a medical exemption to be able to get one, and you're basically going to be walking. So you've got to sort of steel yourself for that. And guys that handle that mindset, better, that are really prepared for that sort of stuff, tend to play better because they're already. They already understand you're going to get a certain number of bad breaks in the course of a round. And they handle those with the plum, and then they understand that once in a while you're going to get a lucky break. You're going to hit a ball, miss by, say, 10 yards from where you're aiming, land on the back of a hump, and it'll shoot right onto the green, as opposed to ending up in a pot bunker. So all of those things you have to be ready for, and you have to figure those into your game, and you can't suddenly get deflated when something bad happens like that.
Yeah, the other thing that people will notice, if they haven't noticed already, is the strategy of that kind of golf. The thing that makes the biggest impression on me is the difference in the bunkers, Jim. I mean, over there, they're actually a penalty, even greenside, whereas in this country, we have bunkers where all of the sand is nice and textured for these guys. They often don't have the real high lips and everything. And our guys here, a lot of times they'll play into a bunker to get to a certain pin in the front. And over there, you can't do that. And you can see how, just like a little BB, those balls roll and bounce around those fairways and end up in those bunkers. It's like watching pinball.
It's remarkable. Courses were designed several hundred years ago, and here's a golf course. Think about this: we're always talking about tiger-proofing golf courses and all the different things that need to be done to make it tougher. Well, this golf course was built basically, almost 300 years ago, and it was basically designed to be played in this miserable weather. And 300 years later, it's just as hard to play as the day they opened it, with very, very minimal alterations. Because in these conditions, I understand you had to be able to play the game along the ground. So most of the greens are open. The entrance into most of these greens are open. You can, I've been passed playing over here by groups of 3 women who can hit the ball probably a max of 130 yards, and what they do is they walk up to the ball, they hit a low-running shot, they walk up to the next shot, they hit another low-running shot, and basically they'll get to the green in 3 and 4 shots, very, very smartly, and they'll play around in 3 hours here, even in miserable weather. It's something that I think people in the States, it would change your appreciation for the game, and it might speed it up in ways that, that we've been trying to do in the States forever. I mean, that 6-hour round of golf is one of the reasons a lot of people start the game and give it up over there. Over here, if you played 6 hours, they'd take you away and put you in jail.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we, in past years, like last year, the weather was almost perfect. Whereas this year, and I think that's what makes part of the watching the British Open on television over here so charming, is the factor of the weather that we're seeing today already, because my producer told me that these guys are standing in the fairway and the head covers are blowing off their clubs.
Oh, yeah, we had gusts up to 35 the other day. In fact, I was walking with the Adam Scott's group, and there's a young Spanish kid named Pablo Larrazabo, who on the par 3 12 walked up about a step away from the tee markers and picked up a bunch of grass to throw it up in the wind. And before he could even throw it up, the wind just blew it right out of his hand. So as a joke, he picked up a piece of a divot. He was about to throw that up, and the wind grabbed that and took it off too. And, I mean, when you come into a situation like that, now you're looking at a par 3. It was 180 yards that day. But basically, you've got to hit your tee ball to the right, maybe 40 yards, and gamble that the wind is going to be as strong as it is. When you feel it on your cheek, you want to make sure it's going to be there a second later when you hit that ball 40 yards right and let the wind steer it right into the green. I mean, it requires, as we were talking, tremendous imagination and a lot of patience.
All right, hang on for 1 second, Jim. When we come back, I'm going to ask you about the surprise, 12 events this year, 12 missed cuts, and all of a sudden David Duval has found the fountain of youth over there and found his game again. It's 6:28 in Chicago. Well, we're visiting with Associated Press national columnist Jim Litke. He's over right now in the press room at Royal Birkdale at the British Open, and we'll have one more segment with him. I'm Phil Kosin. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. You're listening to CBS Radio in Chicago. The Sports Radio 670, The Score. This segment on The Score and Chicagoland Golf is brought to you by the DQ Hot Dog of the Week. Win a Dairy Queen gift card. Log on to 670thescore.com for the DQ Hot Dog of the Week contest info. All right, we'll finish up one more segment, and then we'll let him get to work. Jim Litke, the national columnist for the Associated Press at Royal Birkdale. Jim, I don't know if you know what's going on over here, but it's like maybe lightning struck in two places at once. We've got two players that have done absolutely nothing for the longest period of time, both a couple shots off the lead. Over there you have David Duval. Over here, Michelle Wie is a couple shots off the lead at Springfield.
Well, that's impressive. I got to tell you, I don't know who's the longer shot, to be honest with you, because I've never been convinced of Michelle Wie's readiness yet to play serious golf. But I think if she settles into a mindset where she's going to try to finally show her wares on the women's tour and, make a mark there, then we can talk about what's next in her career. Norman, I think, is a situation, where we've got a guy who obviously knew how to play this game as well as anybody knew how to play it. And remember, he grew up in Australia on the famous sandbelt courses of the Southern Shore, so he knew links golf as a kid. We say it's like riding a bicycle, but the point is these kinds of shots don't require crazy flexibility. They don't require a lot of the things that they don't require maybe as much sharpness. There's a little bit rougher edge to playing links golf, and so it is a surprise that Norman's where he is, but it's not a great surprise, frankly, at least not through 2 rounds. I'd be pretty surprised if come Sunday he's in the same place, but I got to tell you, watching him play this golf course, you can just see those memories sort of flooding as you watch him pick clubs out of the bag from 100 yards, from 120 yards on in, and you see him instead of going with a wedge and trying to hit those shots like he did at Augusta that spun back off the green. They hit those low runners and land them close. And it's a testament to the guys, to his memory, to his interest, to his fitness, frankly, that so far he's been in contention.
Yeah, what is everybody? What's the consensus? What's been David Duval's problem?
Boy, I don't think he's going to say that. I mean, I've heard so many theories, and including a handful from David himself. I don't think it's a swing thing. I don't think it's it's a fitness thing. I don't think it's an injury thing. I think this guy, in one way lost not the desire to play so much as he lost sort of he lost a little bit of the interest in the game. I think he felt like he needed to round his life out a little bit, and once he got started, he didn't know how to get back into that just insane focus that he used to have when he was the number 1 player in the world. I think now that he's got a little bit of balance in his life, he can devote himself to golf in a way he hasn't been able to do in the last couple of years. Whether it's going to stick is anybody's guess, frankly.
All right, so what do we look for in the last 36 holes? The weather enters in. It's going to require a certain set of skills, not only with golf clubs in your hand, but between your ears.
Absolutely, and I think, frankly, the fitness is going to start to show a little bit here. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for the media places around another time. I've got KJ Choi in our pool, and I got to tell you, I've made a nice piece of change on him already. I wouldn't count him out. I don't know if who obviously has the game and has the youth and the fitness. I'm not sure whether he's got, if he's got the mental wherewithal to stick through the next 2 rounds. But he's a guy I keep my eye on. Jim Furyk, I don't think frankly will be around. Robert Allenby might be. Patrick Harrington is a guy, keep your eye on him, because we thought he wasn't even going to play. I mean, the day before on Wednesday, after a little bit of a practice round where he played and then basically chipped and pumped his way around, we said, what's the chance you're going to play tomorrow? He said 75%, and then without us asking, he said, and it's probably 50% that I'll finish. But he's starting to look very, very healthy. He's rolling the ball, rolling the putter very, very nicely, and here's a guy that obviously knows how to play seaside links. So he might be someone I'd keep an eye on.
Would you say that, well, you'd have to, but I think I'd say, and you react to it, I think the European players have a huge advantage now that the weather's going to be even worse over the weekend.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. The one guy that wouldn't apply to is Tiger Woods, obviously, because we know he's got the fitness, we know he's got the imagination, we know he's got the ability to just shut the rest of the world out and play the best golf anybody's seen. Unfortunately, he's not here. But I'd have to agree with you. I mean, I think I would definitely be looking at the Europeans. If I would throw KJ Choi in that mix, even though obviously he didn't grow up playing seaside golf. He just hits the ball hard enough and low enough that he can put himself, he can fly himself around the course, and the guy with skill is fit. Ben Curtis is off to he shot 31 on the front 9 this morning. I wouldn't throw him away necessarily. Maybe one of the American guys. Now, when he won at Lipton, it was not that, it wasn't anywhere near this kind of weather. But he's obviously, he'll have a lot of really, really good memories to draw on and, places to go. He understands this kind of golf well enough that he might be a factor as well. Adam Scott, too, by the way, the Australian, may come back and surprise a couple of people.
What about Rocco?
I think, I think Rocco is I was going to say just happy to be here. He's better than that, but frankly, I just don't see this guy being able to play 2 more rounds as well as he played the first 2.
All right, a final question, and I always save the best for last. What about Phil Mickelson? I mean, earlier in the week, he's got Dave Pelz going in front of the media making excuses for him for what happened at Torrey Pines, claiming that Tiger is luckier than Phil Mickelson, and Mickelson comes out, shoots 9 over the first day. But really, his game, he's a high ball hitter. It's not going to work well in this weather, is it?
No, and you know what? Winners don't need excuses. I mean, the problem with Phil over here is the problem with Phil almost everywhere else. is that, you know, he's wonderful when things are going well, and the minute you run into a bit of adversity, the guy has real problems. You're right, he hits the ball way too high for one thing. He's not good. He hasn't shown a willingness to change the way he plays. I mean, obviously, he's got the length. He may or may not have the fitness to go to 70 holes, but, you know, the problem is that, as we started this conversation, when you come over here, you've got to adapt your game a little bit, and he has yet to show me in any one of these British Opens a willingness to do that. I don't see that guy anywhere near the end.
Well, I think because of his game, I think that's why he's never won a British Open and a U.S. Open. He's never really even contended in the U.S. Open, except for Winged Foot.
Yeah, and you remember what happened when he ran into that little bit of adversity on the 72nd hole, and he had brain seizure. I mean, the guy just, you know, I was walking with him. I couldn't believe the second tee approach shot he tried, you know, between the trees when he hit it off the tree. I mean, you know, anybody with a cushion and a top head shook your head and knocked the ball back in the fairway, and then, you know, try to get up and down the way David Combs did against him to win the PGA Championship in Atlanta. I mean, it wasn't that hard to figure out. Phil is not a very adaptable guy, let's put it that way.
All right. Well, who are you going to walk with today?
I think I'm probably going to start out with maybe with Duval. I want to see if he's got a little bit left, and he'll be playing, I think, either ahead of or behind Patrick Harrington. I want to keep an eye on Harrington. I may pick up KJ Charlotte. It depends whether or not he goes through that front nine with a chance to stay atop the leaderboard.
Well, we'll all be watching here, and Jim Litke, thanks. I appreciate your time this morning. Difficult circumstances trying to do interviews from across the pond, but you did great, and I appreciate it.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. Take care.
All right, we'll see you when you get back in town.
You got it, sir.
All right. That's Jim Litke, the national sports columnist, covering the British Open this week for the Associated Press. He lives here in Chicago. And as I said at the beginning of the program when I was introducing him, he doesn't get a lot of credit because his work, people don't know Jim that much because his work doesn't appear here, yet he's a household name in many other places around the country. But the Tribune and the Sun-Times don't lean heavily on the Associated Press for column material. And so you really don't get to see Jim's stuff here, except in Chicagoland Golf when he writes about golf. He not only writes about golf, he writes about all sports for the AP. And so if Jim's there, you know it's a big event. Well, I looked at the radar, Dave White, and it looks like rain suits. What's going on at the British Open? I don't know if the wind here is howling as much. I don't think so, but it looks like we're going to have British Open weather here at least through the morning in northern Illinois.
I don't think the wind can howl any place like it's howling over across the pond right now at the British Open. That's gale force winds right now. These guys are playing in.
I'm a little jealous because we haven't had the left rear turret where I do the show here at the castle at the Kosin compound. We haven't had it wired for cable.
Oh, actually, you got to do that.
There is a TV in my room here, but it's in the corner, and I can't get to it because there's junk piled up. That's my office, you know. I mean, that's what it's for. All right, it's interesting because of what's going on in Springfield, and I think that's significant. I mean, it's like there were a couple of lightning bolts this week, and they hit David Duval and maybe Greg Norman, but more importantly, Duval and Michelle Wie, neither who have broken an egg over the last couple years, suddenly both of them find themselves right a couple shots off the lead and in the hunt at the halfway point of two events. And I think that's significant. And by the way, this week with the LPGA in Springfield, they're kicking off Illinois Women's Open week because the Illinois Women's Open is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this week, upcoming at Mistwood Golf Club out in Romeoville. And the interesting part this year was we had a record number of entries, and I don't know what it is. Maybe because we used the website and made it easier for players to find what we were doing, but I think the record was 2006, and we had 96 players. That was the biggest field we ever had And that year we were able to accept everyone's entries. And that's the magic number because of the weather. And if you look at the weather forecast for this week, it's that third week in July in Chicago, and there are thunderstorms possible every day. It's just the normal weather pattern. So we switched to an early morning shot, not a shotgun, but a crossover, going off both the first and 10th tees. And so we're limited to 96 players. Well, I don't have the final count, but I'm going to say we probably got 112 to 115 entries. And so for the first time ever at the Illinois Women's Open, we're going to have a qualifying round, 9 holes. And at this point, it looks like 17 players, maybe 18 players, are going to be competing for 9 spots in the field. And that kicks off 3:30 on Wednesday at Mistwood. And then coming up the following week, and we'll talk about it next weekend a little bit more. I'll try to get Mike Miller on with us. But the Illinois Open is the following Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and they've got a new site for that. As you remember, the last few years it's been at the Glen Club. Well, now they've moved it to Hawthorne Woods Country Club, and it should be real interesting to see what happens there. So we'll try to focus on the Illinois Men's Open next weekend, and we'll talk. I'll tell you a little bit more about the Illinois Women's Open later on in the show. At 6:46 in Chicago. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show on British Open weekend, and I'm Phil Kosin. This is The Score, Sports Radio 670. All right, let's take a second to point our attention at 2 other tournaments that are going on this weekend in the area, the expanded area. Up in Milwaukee, the first U.S. Bank Championship. I don't see Kenny Perry's name here in this capsule. But anyway, first round leader Richard S. Johnson, he shot 3 under par 67. Nick Flanagan had 7 under par 63. They share the second round lead at 10 under. That's at the U.S. Bank Championship at Brown Deer Golf Course in Milwaukee, in Beer City. Kent Jones, Gavin Coles tied for third of shot back. Jones shot 65, and Coles of Australia had the low round of the tournament, shot 62, and that's 1 shot short of the course record up at Brown Deer. Another shot back at 132 were Troy Madison and Ken Duke, both who shot 65. And if you're keeping score, I think Kenny Perry did the right thing. He gave those people his word back in January that he was going to play. I see where he's taking a lot of pipe by the more ignorant members of the media. The guy made a commitment back in January, said he's going to, and he's a man of his word, and I respect that. Okay, and down in Springfield, Illinois, at Panther Creek, Christina Kim's second round 68 at the State Farm Classic looked ordinary compared to her opening round 63. But she made a big birdie putt that brought down the house on the last hole and gave her a 1-stroke lead over Michelle Wee and 3 others. Very similar finish to that event as to the British Open. KJ Choi made a big putt to take the lead by 1 over Greg Norman and the rest of the gang, and Michelle Wee is right up there. Couple shots off the lead. She shot her best golf of the year. She shot 65, and she's 12 under for the tournament. So I guess good for her. It's about time, don't you think? Maybe her dad's not there this weekend. And on the Champions Tour, Dana Quigley had a tournament record 10 under par 62. And old Quig is the leader at the first round of the Champion Tour's 3M Championship. That's up in Minnesota, you betcha. All right, 6:54 in Chicago. We'll take another break. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. I'm Phil Kosin. Coming back at the top of the hour, you don't want to miss this. We're going to have, I think, the world's foremost expert on golf course construction. His Wadsworth Golf Construction Company has built over 500 golf courses around the world. Now, there are 16,000 golf courses in the United States. His company has built probably 1 out of every 35 golf courses, and that's significant. We'll talk to Brent Wadsworth, whose company is centered right here in Plainfield, Illinois, right after the 7 o'clock break. It's, like I said, 6:54 if you've got a tee time, And you're listening to The Score, Sports Radio 670.
Let's get back to Phil Kosin and Chicagoland Golf on 670 The Score.
This segment on The Score and the Chicagoland Golf Show is brought to you by Oak Lawn Toyota. Find out why people love doing business with Oak Lawn and visit them today. Kind of a wet day, British Open. But we're going to talk golf course construction. Yeah, I've never done this before. I don't think in 15 years of doing this show we've had anybody on. Certainly we have never had anybody on that's as qualified as this gentleman to talk about that subject. But I don't think we've ever really discussed golf course construction other than with some of the golf course architects that we've had on the show. But anyway, Brent Wadsworth is our guest. He is the founder of the Wadsworth Golf Course Construction Company. He started it in 1948. He's a Chicago boy, graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in landscape architecture. And in 50 years, he has built his company up. He's humble, but he's built his company up to be the industry leader. And actually, I had the wrong number. I looked at my notes. They have built more than 700 golf courses in 44 states. And that's pretty awesome. And Brent, welcome into the show, and good morning. How are you on this drizzly morning in Chicago?
Oh, I'm fine, Phil, and glad to be with you.
All right. God, you've won just about every award in the business and everything, but what I want to do is, and of course, let me mention that you were recently awarded an honorary doctorate of human letters degree by Aurora University, and I know that's a great honor for you, isn't it?
Well, I certainly appreciate it. It's something that I never thought I could ever aspire to, but I certainly am honored.
Well, it's like I said yesterday to you. You're one of those humble people that chooses to work in the background. Your company has some extremely talented employees. Certainly it wouldn't become this successful and this big over the years if you didn't do that. But, you really do deserve this honor because I've always thought that the people that are the most surprised when they get an award like that are the ones that are the most deserving because they don't expect it because they're not doing it for awards.
Well, that's right. I probably would agree with that.
You're also a member of the Illinois Golf Hall of Fame. I want to throw that in. But let's go back. I want you to tell some stories. You came out of U of I with a degree in landscape architecture. How did you get hooked up in the golf business?
Well, I worked for a golf course architect by the name of Robert Bruce Harris during the summertime. And it was a job whereby I learned many things about the game. And from that experience, I began to think that maybe there's something in this profession that I could do. And so I started a partnership with another golf course architect by the name of Edward Larry Packard.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked at that for about 4 years, and in those days they were only building about a dozen golf courses throughout the country, and it was pretty tough going. So I noticed that there were a shortage of contractors or builders. In fact, there were only 2 or 3 throughout the country. And it was difficult to get people to undertake the work in the manner that we expected. So I decided it was time to get into the building business, and that was in 1958. And so that's the 50 years, Phil. So I really got into it by accident, but at the time I didn't know that the game was going to grow so fast. And one thing led to another, and here we are today. They're building, well, they just got done through the early part of the century building about 400 golf courses a year. Now they've slacked off a little bit from that number, but it's unreal what's happened to the game.
Yeah, your situation reminds me, it's very similar, parallel to what Joe Jemsek did. As we all know, Joe had the talent and played the tour, played professionally for a while. But finally he came to the conclusion that there wasn't a lot of money at that time, in those days, in the 1930s, to make money playing professional golf. So he told all those guys, and he knew Sam Snead and Kai LaFoon and all those old guys. He told them, he said, you know what, you guys go ahead and play the golf courses. I'll own them. And that's kind of what you did, because didn't you study, I always call it the College of Architects under RBH, Robert Bruce Harris, but you were kind of in a group with Dick Nugent, Ken Killian, Larry Packard, Jim Spear. Am I missing anybody?
David Gill.
David Gill.
Yes.
All together. And with 5 guys like that all had pretty good careers at golf course architectures and did a lot of work, a lot of it here in the Chicago area, you just figured that, there's too much competition for the very few jobs, and you went into golf course construction. Was Charlie Maddox building golf courses at that time?
Yes, he was. He was one of the few builders in the country, and we were good friends, and I kind of took a cue from him to get into the business. So they did a good job for many, many years.
I have heard stories. I haven't seen any documentation, but one of the Maddoxes that's Dick is still living. He sent me a letter, and he told me in the letter that the family built they were in the golf course business at that time because it didn't exist here, but the family built Chicago Golf Club. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't think that's true, but they might have built Glen Eagles because Charlie Maddox owned that for many years, but they didn't build Chicago Golf Club. No, they weren't in existence at that time.
Okay, no, I'm talking about not Charlie. I'm talking about their earlier relatives, his grandfather.
Oh, well, maybe that's right. I wouldn't know about that.
Yeah. Okay, so you broke out. What kind of equipment did you have to work with? And, of course, we're comparing year 1 to year 50. What kind of equipment and everything did you have to work with then compared to what you have now?
Well, it was a lot smaller and took a lot longer to build the greens and tees. We had small bulldozers and small tractors and small trenchers. But today we have very well-suited equipment that's a lot larger and has more capability, what with GPS opportunity and various elements that are connected with equipment that get the job done.
Well, I'll say this, and I've written this many times, as you know, but your shapers, the guys that sit on those bulldozers, are absolute virtuosos in what they do. And just to describe to the audience, and folks, I've seen this. In fact, I was watching it last fall at Cog Hill. They can work to tolerances of a depth of tolerances of 1 inch with those big yellow diggy things moving dirt around to shape golf courses while they're being built. Now, when you first started building courses, Brent, they weren't as complicated as they are today. In other words, I think over the years, over the 50 years, the architects have come up with more creative things about build-ups and stuff like that. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Yep, that's for sure.
Tell us a little bit about how that changed, and was there a point where it changed dramatically, or was it over a period of time?
Well, in the early years there, when we started, much of the grading of the tees and greens was done by scrapers, earth movers, and very little of it was done with bulldozers. So we started in developing a system which would allow the scrapers to move the dirt to the locations, and then we would use the bulldozers and began to develop people that could handle those requirements and would build those features. Now, at the same time, the golf course architects, began to utilize various designs that gave the earth a little more movement and interest. So the two kind of went hand in hand, and we kind of moved in with that approach to the facility development. So that's what kind of transpired through the years, and we've had a lot of, as you said, a lot of good people that have been with us, and we've worked with them, and they've developed techniques and various skills that are very unordinary in terms of what they feel about the features on a golf course. So it's been a learning process for 50 years, and I'm proud to say that we have some of the best people in the business.
If you're just joining us, our guest on this portion of the Chicagoland Golf Show, by the way, it's 7:10 if you've got a tee time this morning, but there are a lot of spritzing going on in the Chicago area. Brent Wadsworth is the founder of the Wadsworth Golf Construction Company. They're based here in Plainfield, Illinois, but they've built over 700 golf courses in 44 states. I mean, people go out to play golf today, Brent, and that is like, what, one course in 30 that you guys are responsible for?
Probably in that area, yeah.
What are oh, you know what, I got one more question about shaping, and then we'll move off that. Did you guys, the blades that those guys use when they do the final shaping on a golf course, are those standard blades that you buy, or is that something you may have designed?
Well, they're generally standard, but we modify them slightly in terms of their ability to cut angles and leveling devices. So we can say that they're standard, but with some modification.
What was the most difficult golf course construction project you guys have undertaken? Is there one that jumps out at you?
Phil, they're all pretty hard, but I'll tell you one that really tested our equipment, and that was out in the lava in Hawaii on the Big Island. We had a project out there that was built right over the lava, and it was very hard material, and it just wore our machinery out. We had to go through two sets of equipment on that particular job. So I'd say that was probably the hardest. Now, we also have built courses in rock, many places around the country. It's amazing how the earth changes from state to state and from locale to locale. But there's a lot of rock in this country, and a lot of it is on the surface, and we've had to deal with it. So, but that one on the lava, that was just like working on razor blades. It just peeled away the steel, and took us a little longer than we expected, but we got it done.
We want to ask you, have your bulldozer guys or your crews ever discovered something really interesting while they were moving dirt?
Well, one instance I can relate to you. We were over in South Bend, Indiana, and we built a par 3 golf course. And we were digging down on a site which looked to be a natural area. And about 3 feet below the surface, we uncovered a water closet, or more known, a toilet. And we were quite amazed to find such an item down in the earth that far. So that would be one thing.
I have a friend who's an architect who will remain nameless, but he was telling me a story about a golf course they were building down south. And, of course, we all know the laws concerning disturbing graves of Native Americans.
Yes. Which,
of course, those were never marked. And he was telling me about one day one of his bulldozer operators came over and said, "You better come over here and look at this." And they had uncovered, it looked like 4 Indian graves.
Wow.
And he said, and I know how long it took them down at Sanctuary Golf Course down in New Lenox to get that place finished, because they had to move some Native American graves that they discovered during the construction phase. And so the guy told me the story. He said, well, I asked the guy, I said, who else knows about this? And the bulldozer operator said, nobody, just you and me. He said, we'll cover them back up and we'll put a mound there. You know, because it would take, you know, they'd have to come in and do the whole archaeological dig, and that would delay the project.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you know what?
Set it back months.
Yeah. And I'll bet the permitting that everybody has to go through to build a golf course has changed a lot in 50 years too, hasn't it?
It sure has. And when we first started, there were no restrictions. You could work in any kind of conditions. Wetlands were an average place where people wanted to build a golf course, and no permits were necessary to work in those kinds of areas. But today, you don't make a move without having an environmental study done and permits provided. Recently, we built a remodel of Naperville Country Club, and they needed something like 30 permits just to rebuild their golf course. So it shows you how things are changing.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, though, I'll give you a chance to get ready for this question. I want you to tell the story about the first golf course. I think it's the first course you built, Fox Bend, and how you built that as a living laboratory to test different techniques of golf course construction and stuff like that. We're visiting with Brent Wadsworth. He's the founder of Wadsworth Golf Construction Company. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary year. They are the main man. They're the 800-pound gorilla in golf course construction. They've built more than 700 courses in 44 states. Some of the ones around here, and I'll mention some more later, they built Cantini out in Wheaton. They built Orchard Valley in Aurora, Stonebridge in Aurora. They built Prairie Bluff. They built, let's see what else. A lot of different golf courses. We'll talk to Brent later when we come back. We're going to take a break. 7:16, the score, the Chicagoland Golf Show. You're listening to Sports Radio 670. .22 on the Chicagoland Golf Show, and we're visiting with an old friend, the founder of Wadsworth Golf Construction Company, the 800-pound gorilla in the industry. It just amazes me. 44 states, they've built over 700 golf courses. Awesome. Hey, Brent, before we talk about Fox Bend, I was thinking during the break, I remember a story that I heard about when you guys built Heritage Bluffs.
Huh?
There was a wetlands deal going on over there, and you guys, I think, I had never heard of anything being done like that in the industry. Did you guys cut and roll up a wetland, which of course includes the plants and all the roots? Did you cut and roll up a wetland like sod and move it to another portion of the golf course?
Yes, that's called mitigation, and we worked very diligently to pick up all the plants that were growing in those areas and move them to another place after we had regraded it and provided a swamp-like effect. So that's what happened there.
Did you have to go through a lot of permitting to move that, or because I've never heard of that before? Is that something brand new?
No, it's been around, and it is not new. We do it occasionally, but not very often. Mostly the architects design around those areas, and so that you don't have to become involved with that. But when it's impossible because of lack of land, then that's a technique that we have to employ.
Yeah. Okay, Fox Bend. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the first golf course you built, and I'm not sure if you owned it at that time. But anyway, the story, and what I remember is going out there years ago. I don't think you can tell now, but you could tell then. You tried out everything. You had different irrigation systems on different holes, different grasses on some of the tees and the fairways on the greens. I'd never heard of that being done. Was that something you came up with on your own?
Yes, it was, Phil. What happened was that was not our first golf course. That was the one and only golf course that I personally designed after leaving the design field. But the first golf course we did was Calumet Country Club down in Homewood. Mm-hmm. And we built Fox Bend about 10 years later when automatic irrigation was coming on the scene. And at the same time, there were new grasses that many of the experiment stations were putting on the market around the country. So we thought if we had kind of a actual playing laboratory, we could explain to our customers the various opportunities that they would have available. So we designed that golf course and built it, and as you said, owned it for a period of time until it was sold to the park districts of Oswego and Aurora.
Yeah, and I think Leon McNair helped you build that, didn't he? If I remember the story.
You're correct. He was one of our first employees there, and I'm proud to say that he stayed on at Fox Bend and became their permanent professional, and he stayed with it for 35 years, and he just recently retired. And following his retirement, he took over the presidency of a foundation that we started a few years ago, and it's called Wadsworth Golf Charities Foundation. And it's a foundation devoted to the affordable golf for youth and individuals with disabilities and injuries and families of all ethnic backgrounds. And we're quite proud of our record in that domain.
Well, you've got a new initiative that you started, and we're going to take a break here in a couple minutes because I want to make sure we have enough time for you to tell about that, because I think it's a great idea. I think there's so much that's gone on. People talk about growing the game. If you look on our website, ChicagolandGolf.com, I've got a story on there where I went back 15 years ago and pulled out my notes from, what was it, Golf Summit 92 or whatever it was. Uh-huh. And I looked at all of the suggestions. And this was in Orlando. It was 3 days, if I remember correctly. It was all the heavy hitters in the business, the equipment companies, the tours, everybody.
Yep.
And they came up with initiatives. What needs to be done to grow the game of golf? And it was done at the right time because everything was just booming at that time. And then what happened 15 years later? Well, if you go to the website, you can look at that, listeners, because not very many of those initiatives have been taken up. Everybody came up with great ideas, but nobody did anything about it. Everybody sat around on their hands waiting for somebody else to pick up the initiative. I think the only one of those, Brent, was groups like the First Tee of Aurora that were not associated with any of the groups involved with Golf Summit, the local groups like that formed to start and doing things for junior golf.
That's correct. Yeah, you hit it on the head.
All right, that's why you started your little thing. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Okay.
I'm telling you, folks, you got to listen to this because it's a great idea to grow the game. And I mean really grow the game, and Brent's putting his money where his mouth is. 7:28 in Chicago. If you have a tee time, take a rain suit today or a rain shirt and an umbrella. It's going to be about, 80 degrees, but it's going to be drizzly all day, maybe a thunderstorm. This is Phil Kosin, the Chicagoland Golf Show, the Score, Sports Radio 670. This segment on the Score and Chicagoland Golf is being brought to you by your Chicagoland Saturn dealers. All right, that takes care of that biz. And now we'll get back to something really important with our guest, Brent Wadsworth. Okay, Brent, so after all these years of you've made a very good living and carved out a nice little lifestyle for yourself through the game of golf, and now it's trite, and everybody says it, but most of them don't do it, but you're actually doing something to give back. You've got an initiative called Links Across America. Tell us about it.
Well, Phil, it started with an idea that we had as a result of there not being a great increase in the number of golf courses or the golfers in America, because we had an increase in population, but it just hasn't grown to the extent that was expected. So we kind of looked at our record in the charity field and decided that maybe there's something there that we can put together and try to improve our golfing situation. So if you've ever gone on a practice tee and watched a young person hit the ball and see the wonderful feeling that they have when they make a direct hit, well, we kind of took that and said we got to start with people that are going to use these facilities when they're young, and at the same time give them opportunities relative to disabilities and injuries. And there weren't many facilities around the country that were devoting their efforts to that type of thing. So we decided if we could get some participation from other industries that contributed to golf, like equipment manufacturers and golf club manufacturers and people like that, that we could all join together in a partnership and start building small 3-hole, 6-hole, or 9-hole golf courses and give America what it really would like to have, and that is access. So we're in the process of developing many of those opportunities.
But how are you going to do that? Give us some details, because it involves building some new courses, doesn't it?
It sure does. And what we're looking at is taking vacant property that park districts, park departments, YMCAs, municipalities of various kinds, schools, and where there's a possibility of taking a little bit of their property that isn't being used and turning it into one of these links across America golf courses. So that's what we're concentrating on.
And what's your offer to these groups that would like to become part of this? You're building the golf courses. You would do the construction work at cost, right?
Correct. Not only at cost, but even less than that. We're trying to donate much of the work and the supplies and various things that go into make up a facility of this sort, and would include practice driving facilities as well as practice areas. So our offer is pretty basic in that it doesn't cost the owner of the property any money, but we do have to initiate a program of providing a method for the facility to sustain itself. So that's where Leon McNair, who, as you mentioned, who's been in the business for 35 years and knows it up and down, is putting together formats for operating them at a rate that would provide for their upkeep is all. So that's what we're doing.
Well, who's going to design these courses? When we talked about this last fall, we went to a dinner for First Tee of Aurora. I was really impressed with the strength and the enthusiasm of that organization. We went to hear Mike Small speak. He was the guest speaker that night and came over from the Orange and Blue tournament that they were having at Olympia Fields that weekend. But I was really impressed with what you told me that night, and I guess you've got some architects that will volunteer their services to design some of these golf courses.
That's correct. We have many architects that we have worked with through the years, and they're all offering their services at no charge, and it's a contributory type of endeavor that we join forces in our various disciplines and make something work.
And part of what you're doing is you're offering to help set up financing through a corporate company partners program, right?
Yes, that's part of it too. It's extensive, and there's various parts to this thing that we had to draw together, and financing is one, and as well as providing, as I said before, a way to operate the golf courses.
How is it moving along since I sat next to you at dinner that night and you had to listen to me?
Phil, that was a wonderful evening. We have probably 25 different locations identified at the present time, all the way from Washington, state of Washington, to Louisiana, to a couple out east, and we're beginning to put the parts together. But it's a major endeavor to get all the participants in on one of these things. So it's taking time, but we're making headway, and we're glad we're into this phase of opportunity here.
Have you got anybody in the Chicago area that's jumping in on this program?
Oh, yeah. We got the Oswego Park District, for one. We got the city of Aurora because they're located near our office. And we've got several other locations identified and people interested in what we're doing. So it's going to take off here one of these days, and we're going to try to contribute to the game. You know, Phil, I know you've talked about this because we're good friends on the golf course, and we've had a lot of fun together, and it's the only social opportunity in life and lasts forever. And if we can get feeder golf courses started like we're talking about here, and allow them to be producing players who understand that there's a lot of fun with the game. And incidentally, I want to tell you, I'm not the first guy that identified the fact that golf is fun. We started working out at Dub's Dread here about 8 months ago, and I had the opportunity to talk with Frank Jemsik for some time over what the game really means to people, and we came up with this feeling that it's fun, but what makes it fun? It's the anticipation of seeing a golf ball travel off the end of a club and wondering what it's going to do. And if you could see these kids that are 8, 9, 10 years old hitting that golf ball, you just get involved with wanting to progress the opportunity to other people. And Frank was very instrumental in supporting our initiative here. And I got to give him credit because he's one of the best in the business with all the courses they own.
Yeah, but when you think about it, Brent, running around a field, hitting the ball, chasing a ball with a club and whacking it again, it is a pretty stupid game, isn't it?
It sure is, but what fun, especially when you got a guy along with you like Phil Kosin, who loves to talk and have fun
Not me.
out there. Oh, come on, Phil. You know, it's the greatest thing in the world to be playing together.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the funniest stories was, of course, you built Seven Bridges, and I played it a couple times before it opened. And then they had a grand opening cocktail party. And we were standing there, and I had talked to you and your lovely wife, Jean. Kathy and I were there that night, and we had visited, and then we kind of broke apart. And then Dick Nugent walked into the room, and you came over and said, I want to introduce you to Dick Nugent. You didn't know that Dick and I were old friends. So anyway, you brought Dick over and introduced me to it, and I kind of played along, and Dick said, well, how did you like the golf course? I said, it's really nice, but the 16th hole sucks, and you need to fix it. And your jaw dropped, and you thought, how the hell could you say that to him? Of course, I was half kidding, and they did finally fix it. But the look on your face that night. But I'll tell you, I want to tell the audience this. One of the traditions with Wadsworth Golf Course Construction Company is all the workers and whoever else is around, they have the grand opening, the quiet grand opening of the golf course. They play a money game. What do? Divide up into 2 or 3 teams, and the teams play against each other. And I remember watching a guy drain a putt, an 80-foot putt. Let's see, 10. It was on the 11th green at Orchard Valley that put $175 in my pocket.
Yes, I remember that well, Phil. That was
hey,
a lot of fun.
Well, hey, Brent, thank you for coming on with us this morning. I know you're not You've done such great things, and you're so shy about coming on and being an interview. But I wanted to have somebody on of your stature to talk a little bit about the golf course construction business with us, to kind of explain how things are done, what you've done. And all I want to say is congratulations on 50 great years of doing what you do, because there ain't nobody better in the world doing it.
Well, thanks very much, Phil. I enjoyed being with you.
All right, thank you. That's Brent Wadsworth, and we've had a lot of fun over the years doing some of this stuff. The golf courses that they have built, they're doing, that's what Frank Jemsek wanted. He wanted the best to do the redesign at number 4. That's why he brought in Reese Jones, and one of his goals was to bring in Wadsworth Golf Construction Company, to bring in the A-team over there to come in and do all the work, and he got his wish. The way things worked out, they were available, and they're over there doing the work. And I talked to Frank the other day, and in case you're wondering, work is coming along. They've got 5 more tees to grass, and all 18 greens are grassed and in various stages of growing in. And, they also have to grass the putting green. Doubtful that it'll be open this fall, but I think it'll be a lot of fun and quite an occasion when Cog Hill number 4 opens up next spring. It's 7:46. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. I'm Phil Kosin on British Open weekend, and you're listening to The Score, Sports Radio 6. 7:51 in Chicago. Let me click over here and look at the radar. Nah. Weather in a word, yeah. Although it should clear out. We may have some more later today. Well, what else do you expect? It's British Open weekend. Amazing. A couple of things I just wanted to mention. I would sit here, I could read the whole litany of all the awards that Brent Wadsworth has won. He was in the second class of the Illinois Golf Hall of Fame, but he also in 1993 became the first golf course designer to receive the prestigious Donald Ross Award from the American Society of Golf Course Architects, and that's not small either. He's just he doesn't like being out front. He's not a politician. He's a little bit shy, I think. Especially, but I wanted to have him on because we've never done that, and they've done so much, and I also wanted to honor a little bit what he and his company have accomplished. So, something different for Chicagoland Golf. Next week, we've got Barney Adams coming on, and we'll whip up somebody to help us analyze what we see on TV today. My recliner is idling right now. It's warming up, and I shall be in it in a few minutes, because it looks like the golf today over there is going to be really entertaining. If you want to see these guys struggle, and if you want to learn how to play golf on the ground, you'll see the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. So that should be a lot of fun. This week, the Illinois Women's Open, we have a qualifier for the first time, and that'll happen Wednesday afternoon at Mistwood, and then the first round Thursday, and then Friday we make the cut, and then we finish it up on Saturday. You can go to ChicagolandGolf.com and get all the pairings, both for the regular event and for the qualifier. Let's see what else. Illinois Open is the following week. A week starts a week from Monday, and probably by Monday. We're working on an issue with the British Open, so we're going to be busy doing that. But probably by Monday or Tuesday, I will have all the pairings for the Illinois Open on the website as well. So you can go there if you want to go there and read a little bit more about Brent's links across America. Just hit the button for Phil Kosin columns, and it's one of the last ones on there. I wrote it last fall. Dave White, thanks a lot. Great job today.
You're welcome, sir. My pleasure.
Having Jim Litke on, even though there was a little interference in the background, it kind of adds to the charm of when you're talking on an international line, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. It made it sound all the more authentic.
Yeah. All right. Thanks to our guests, Jim Litke from Associated Press and Brent Wadsworth from Wadsworth Golf Construction Company. Have a great week, everybody. Have fun watching this one on TV. Until the next time, I'll say keep it in the short stuff, everyone. Look for our issue starting Tuesday at all the local golf courses. Until then, I'll just tell you, let's see, what else do I have to say? It's been a Pull My Finger production. So long, everybody.